Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Ektron Developer Office Hours. This week we will be talking about online video, typically just as an integration with other services like Brightcove, Vimeo, YouTube, etc., as well as digital asset management and how that may be used to complement your CMS installation and implementation. And as always, if you have any questions about the topic of the day or just in general about web development or Ektron, jump onto Twitter, send out your question using the Ektron-OH hashtag, and we'll answer as best we can. And with that, Brad, I'll let you introduce yourself first.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Brad Steele. I'm with HintTech. For those who have followed Office Hours in the past, you may notice that the width has changed. Used to be with Gutierrez, now I'm with HintTech. HintTech is actually located primarily in the Netherlands, with offices all over the world, including the US, myself included. We are focused primarily in the digital asset management space, so that's one of the reasons that I wanted to jump in on this call, because I have experience in both sides of this topic.
Well, that's great. Look forward to hearing your take on that. Certainly something I can learn more about and like to carry with me into conversations as well. And Kenny.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kenny Gutierrez. I'm with Behringer. We're an investment company based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've been here, let's say, about 7 years. I've been using Ektron since version 7.03.
7.03. I remember those days.
Ugh, yeah.
The API's changed just a little since then.
Just a tad.
Work area has gone through several colors.
I'm not going to talk about the first version I used.
Well, mine was 6.1, and I think you were a little bit ahead of me on that.
Yeah, 4.7.
4.7, wow. Yeah, quite a few revisions and feature enhancements since then. All right, so let's jump into online video first. So, Kenny, I know you've recently been doing some online video. Could you just give us a brief overview of what you've been doing at Behringer with that?
Sure. We've got several different places we use video. We've got internal sales guys, external sales guys, and like the easiest way to kind of get to know who your sales rep is to go watch their video. So we've got a place on our website where you can go check out the video bios. We also link those video bios to their signature lines in their email. So we've got a smart form where you just put in all the information about the sales guys. We've got a little place where you put the little ID of the video, so that works out pretty well. Other places, we've got a video talking about our rebrand. We're probably going to have one later today showing our what am I trying to say? We were a sponsor of the Dallas Marathon this past weekend, so we'll have a little video where our CEO was on the news, so that kind of thing.
Right. And yeah, I definitely think smart forms are the way to go there, but I think smart forms are the way to go with just about anything inside of Ektron, to be perfectly honest. So, but I think that we would all agree that you want to use a good service for your videos and not try to put them into Ektron unless you're just adding them as a downloadable asset and not doing streaming. So Kenny, who are you using for video right now?
Right now we're using a company called Vidyard. I think they're based out of Canada, and they've been real good for us, work with us real easily with our integrations.
Yeah, and what kind of integrations would that be?
They've got integrations with Marketo and Salesforce. We've got some training videos. They'll push into Salesforce when we need to do reporting on how many people watched the video, whether they watched it from the beginning to end, paused, whatever, that kind of stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I'm glad you're having a good experience with them. We also Ektron integrates with Brightcove, YouTube, and I think to a lesser extent Vimeo, which are all options as well. But it sounds like the integration was the deciding factor for you.
Right.
Yeah. And Brad, who have you used and been successful with in video?
Well, primarily YouTube, actually. Most of our clients in the past that I worked with that needed to host video, either the videos were small enough and their customer base was small enough that they just hosted them within this CMS, or they preferred to just post them out on YouTube. Also, Bright Cove, and that was the other one that we integrated with.
Yeah. So yeah, I think YouTube, you're not going to get that kind of analytics and tracking, and you're not going to get branding and some of the other things that might be important to the organization that you're dealing with. So, but you actually have done implementations with video stored inside of the CMS?
Yeah, sure have. Again, small videos, small customer base. We don't want to put our clients in a position where we're overloading their bandwidth that they've got allotted with their contract. So anytime it gets to the point where the videos are lengthy, high bandwidth, or they've got a lot of potential viewers, that's when we're going to recommend an external service. Also, as Kenny, just as you kind of mentioned, as anytime you want analytics off of that video, yeah, you can get the basics out of Ektron, you can get the basics out of Google, but you're not going to get pause, right? You're not going to get how long did they watch it. You can get a little bit of that out of YouTube, but you don't get that integration you get from the professional services that are really designed for that integration.
Right. One other feature I kind of like is once you've kind of got the embed code in place, you're managing your playlist with your provider. So you kind of touch the page one time, and you can add chapters, you can remove chapters, you can kind of override, and you can kind of manage that kind of outside the website. So that's pretty handy.
Yeah, I can see how that would be. I'm kind of surprised that you've done, was it recent implementations with video inside of the CMS? I would think that with the number of formats and browsers and devices, et cetera, that would need to be supported, I mean, it's so much easier just to offload that onto a Vimeo or YouTube or Vidyard or something like that, and it covers all of those bases for you. So what was the argument for putting it into the CMS, and what were your challenges there?
Yeah, so a couple of things. You kind of hit on the key one, versions, right, or video types, stream types. With HTML5, it's a little simpler, right, because you really have some standards that work across the board, and you can step down with it. And that's really what we had to do. The challenge was picking the versions that worked, picking the versions that would, or the different encoding schemes that would work across all devices. We actually ran into a situation where some of the iOS devices wouldn't play the videos, even though everything looked like it was in the right format. And it turned out we had some integration points we had to deal with on the network side. So all those things that these providers have already figured out, have already handled, we kind of had to walk through and figure out, okay, these are the formats that we're going to need to pick. This is how we're going to need to store it in the system. Here's the smart form we're going to need to handle, okay, here are the 4 different formats that we've uploaded, and these are the ones that match, so making sure that it renders properly. So yeah, we basically had to do kind of all that rendering side stuff and all the formatting stuff that the providers just simply handle for you after you upload your copy.
Yeah. So just in my mind, it's not worth the effort. I'd much rather go with YouTube.
There's some free services out there.
Yeah, there are free ones out there, and there are cheap ones out there, and then there are some that provide the advanced features, like what Kenny is using with the integration into Salesforce and the more in-depth analytics. So I think, given the options, you're better off going with an integration with those providers. You always want to keep a copy of the video local so that you're not putting all of your content into their hands.
Yeah.
As far as complete ownership, but. Yeah, I can't imagine going through that level of effort, as opposed to building something that's just an integration with the transcode service, etc. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that.
Well, it's security. That's a whole other layer that again you have to deal with if you want to limit who can see the video. Yeah. Services handle that for you. You don't need to worry about it, and they are guaranteed going to be more secure than you can figure out in a short term.
Yep. Yeah, especially short term. I think that's a key point as well, is how quickly can you get up and off the ground running with that. So there is another video tool that I'd like to bring up called Hapyak, H-A-P-Y-A-K. Have either of you heard of that one?
No.
Okay, so this is actually one that I've recently been exposed to, and it's pretty cool. I think that Kenny, you actually might be able to use it, and Brad with your clients and integrations. Yeah, I think you definitely could. But it's basically, it doesn't take over the player, but it provides interactivity and rules around the player. So like you have to fill out a registration form or you can't play the video, but it's as an overlay on the video. Or you can't advance past a certain point without adding your email address or something like that, or you can do CTA overlays that would be better than what's provided on YouTube. So I think it's a pretty cool service that doesn't interfere with the video, but just has, it's basically CSS overlays on top of the video with control over the video. So you can do it with Brightcove, with YouTube, with these other providers. They don't care where it's hosted, but they can provide that overlay for you. It provides an extra level of interactivity for lead generation. For if you're say doing training and you want to ask questions in the middle of the video, then you can ask those questions right there on the video. So pretty cool service, worth looking into. But not one I've done a lot with yet. We're just kind of been exploring that option. That shows a lot of promise right now. All right, so Brad, you are doing a lot of digital asset management. I think unless there are any questions, we've worn out the video topic, and we can move over to DAM. Sure. I almost had a lot of fun with that in the subject line of the email that went out, damn videos or something like that. But I restrained myself. But I'll let you go ahead and just give us an overview of what digital asset management is, and then how that complements a web CMS.
Sure. Well, just like a lot of systems that Ektron integrates with, a digital asset management system definitely overlaps in a lot of functional areas with content management systems. But really, the fundamental difference between a content management system and a digital asset management system, I'll just stick with DAM instead of DAM, it is in its ability to manage those assets. So, for example, let's say you want to upload an image into a system, but until it's past a certain level of workflow, any output of that image is going to have a watermark on it. You can do that in a digital asset management system. If you want to integrate with the CMS, that's really nice because you can go off and do all your image management tools and your image management and your workflow around that. And until it's really ready for publication, either it won't go out at all, or it will go out with a watermark or some other kind of enhancement that indicates, hey, yeah, this image is here, but it's not really ready. And on top of that, the digital asset management tools provide more editing capabilities. So if I do need to get into that system or that image and do some real manipulation with it, I can tie right into, say, the Adobe Creative Suite, make my changes in there, and still be tied into the workflow of the DAM. So
tied integrations with desktop applications.
Mm-hmm. And then built-in tools as well. There's comparison tools. There's editing tools. Depending on the system, some of them are quite sophisticated, and I would even say rival some of the Adobe tools.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
So what is I guess what's a use case maybe that you've seen where the two have been integrated or used together, or where have you seen that happening?
Yeah, so let's say you are putting together a product catalog. You've got a site that's got a number of products. Each product has different variants and variations, but you will have also many different destinations for that information. Maybe you've got packaging. You've got third-party sites that might want to host that product information. You've got your own site to host that product information. By managing it all the image assets, all the content that goes along with, say, the packaging, the content that goes along with the claims around the product, and any kind of marketing, by managing all that in a digital asset management tool, you can then push what you need to the content management system, what you need to these third-party vendors, what you need to the printers that are putting together the packaging, and you've centralized all of that information in one place. Sure, you could do that in your content management system. You could do that in SharePoint. But in a DAM, you've also got all those other tools around it, the workflow, the editing tools, the comparison tools, staging capabilities that are really designed for assets and images. So that's what we've seen is that takes that abstraction of content and that abstraction of the assets that go along with content and moves it one level back and allows the content management system to be a consumer of much of that information, not always all of it, right? Your website may have completely different copy than any of your other materials, and so that would be best managed in a CMS.
Okay, so does the digital asset management system for something like documents, will it turn it into a PDF for your website, or with images, will it convert it from a TIFF to a PNG or JPEG, or will it do those kinds of transcoding of the files for the system as appropriate?
Yeah, and actually that's, again, it depends on the system. Some are more capable than others, but that's really where the power of the DAM comes in, is how you output what you have. I kind of mentioned the watermark earlier, so the image didn't really pass a certain point in the web flow or in the workflow, so we're going to output it with a watermark on it. Same thing goes for the end of it, right? I'm done. I'm ready to publish my image to all these different destinations. Well, maybe Amazon needs it in a particular format and size. They need a thumbnail. They need a banner. They need a skyscraper. The website might need a large banner and a thumbnail. So you can key the system to output those images in the formats that are appropriate for the destination. Same with the documents.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I had another question, but it fell out of my head and it's laying on the floor somewhere, I think. No, I think that sounds like an excellent complement. So why would you, with Ektron having some basic document management, what's really the argument? What's the deciding factor? Why would you go into a situation where you're talking to somebody? Let's say you're talking to Kenny. Hypothetically, hi Kenny, you're still here.
Hey.
I'll talk to you, Kenny.
So Kenny's interested in a digital asset management system potentially, but he's not sure if he has the need, if he has the right problems that would be solved with digital asset management. So what is the deciding factor for whether or not to make that investment in dollars, time, et cetera, to implement that?
Well, the keyword is basic. Well, Ektron does provide some basic capabilities in image editing, basic capabilities in conversion of images when you upload them. They're basic, right? They get you in the door, they get you started. But in order to really take advantage of best of breed, using something like DXH, you can connect over to a digital asset management system and let the users really take advantage of those advanced features we were just talking about earlier. So you have more than one destination. It's not just the website. Or maybe you've got one image, but you know you're going to need it in a number of different formats. Or you've got all your documents in Word, but you really want to make sure everything goes out as, I don't know, an image, right? I know Ektron provides a PDF conversion. Maybe you need something more advanced than that. So
right.
Your DAM, that's going to provide you with those advanced tools. Step one, Ektron. Step two, take advantage of the best of breed and use the digital asset management tool to get those images in the formats and your documents in the formats that you really want them in.
Okay, so we've got a question online from Jim. What are some actual strategies for integrating a digital asset management system? Custom file picker, manually copying and pasting the URL, or pushing data into the CMS?
Ooh, workflow is your key. Just as Ektron provides workflow in certain areas, most of your DAM tools provide workflow throughout. And by taking advantage of that workflow, you can then decide, again, how you want to push it through. Typically with a CMS, you want to push into the CMS. With Ektron, I would recommend using the DXH because it's going to make that integration much tighter. Most integrations would be very similar to the SharePoint integration, where you would, once your assets were in the right format or in the right state in the workflow, they would show up in the right place that would allow your connector to pull those in and map them into the CMS, just like you would with the SharePoint connector.
Well, I think it would make sense to push the assets, especially if you're wanting the format conversions to take the document to PDF. You can do like a lower quality PDF that's not a print quality PDF into your CMS and send the print quality PDF over to the publishing house or something like that. But I think that with the workflow in the DAM, would you agree with that? Does it make sense to push the data actually into the CMS and let the CMS serve it from there? Or would you say it needs to refer back to the DAM to actually retrieve the data and serve it to the visitor on the fly?
Well, this kind of goes back to one of our earlier points about video. What you just said about PDFs, perfect example, right? I want to push that web quality PDF to the CMS. I'm going to push a much higher quality PDF to the printer. But let's talk about video, right? I'm going to push the information to the CMS that it needs to know how to render that video, but I'm going to push the video over to a provider. So that
right. Okay. So Ian, let's take Kenny. Kenny, I'm going to pick on you. Your video
All
example. Right. Let's say, Kenny, you're storing the videos. I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying, Brad, and that we're on the same page with this. So, Kenny, if you're storing your videos inside of a digital asset management system, I suppose you could use metadata about those videos or something like that, but you're effectively pushing the smart form information or the ID for the video or whatever is necessary from the DAM over into the CMS once it hits a certain point in workflow. It's final approval or something like that. And then at the same time, you're actually sending the video through provider APIs to YouTube, for example, or to Vidyard in Kenny's case. So the video is stored inside the DAM, and you're sending reference information to the CMS. You're sending the actual video data to the video provider, to Vidyard.
Yeah, and what happens there is you've got a situation where you don't really have to do any management really within the CMS, or maybe you want a stage in there, a stage in your workflow or in your approval where, okay, once it comes in, I still want to review it before I publish it. So you can still do that, and really all you then would have is notification saying, hey, you've got a new video that just got posted. You've got to approve it. Once you approve it, you publish it. The CMS then can render it. The video is already sitting out at Vidyard or wherever it's being hosted.
All right, but do you recommend it be a push from the DAM typically, rather than a pull from the CMS?
Yeah, definitely. But I would want to think about workflow and decide whether or not you want to stop it at any point, or have a go no go kind of gating factor on it.
Now, I could see this being a little bit more. Maybe political is the right word. There would be challenges around somebody who's authoring HTML content inside of the CMS, and they want to just throw images in as they're editing. So how might that work with a DAM?
Well, that comes back to your brand management. If you've got really tight brand guidelines, you're not going to be allowed simply to just upload images, or if you do, you might get yourself in some pretty good trouble. With the DAM, you've got your marketing people, you've got your brand people that are all tied into the workflow that you've already defined for creating the imagery. But then you've got that second level of how do I output that imagery.
So you're going to stop me. You're going to stop me from putting my animated GIFs into my blogs. That's what you're saying. That's what I'm hearing right now.
Yeah, and if you don't have really tight brand guidelines, if there's nothing required there, then you can loosen up, right? You don't really need that DAM when you really don't have the approvals or the workflow or the guidelines or the tight controls that you might need to maintain your brand integrity.
So would you say that the DAM is more appropriate for the marketing collateral, marketing produced images and things like that, as opposed to the animated GIFs that I want to put in my blog? Would you keep those separate, or would you say put the GIFs in the DAM as well?
Oh, I'd certainly keep them separate. If you've got content of any kind, even images that are really strictly for the website and don't need to follow the workflow or the approval processes that are already established in your asset management system, then yeah, go ahead and upload them into the CMS. But of course, if you want that control, you still might want to have it go through the same process.
And you can always have workflows inside of the CMS as well for the web content. So it's definitely complementary workflows if you want to have those. part of that actually could be the advanced workflow. You could search for images and push them over into the DAM from the CMS as well.
Yeah, you certainly could. I don't know why you would, but
I don't know. So yeah, but I think custom file picker would also be an option where you could do a widget or an Aloha plugin to actually browse the assets that are on the DAM.
Yeah, you certainly could. Yeah, it probably depends on what you want to use the images for.
Well, I could see creating calls to action inside of the CMS or something like that, or if you just want to insert the logo somewhere into your blog post, then I can see the advantage of being able to browse those assets, even if they are marketing managed, even if they're workflowed. What about copying and pasting the URL? That option, is the DAM typically exposed to public access or not?
Yeah, typically it wouldn't be. You can certainly have public portals, and I've worked in environments where we've set it up that way. So that, for example, your B2B clients, they might have a login and direct access, right, to the marketing materials, or your press contacts might have direct access to the marketing materials and press materials in the DAM. But not typically, you typically don't want to be hosting out of it. You really want the CMS for that. I mean, that is what a CMS is designed for. Right.
Okay, and I think that it pretty well makes obvious the difference between a DAM and something like a CDN as well. There shouldn't be any confusion there, I think, at this point in the conversation.
Yeah.
So, because the DAM is more a management tool and not a hosting solution.
Right.
But once the files are in the CMS, you could do CDN from that point forward once the files are in the CMS, or you could push files from the DAM to a CDN, but they're complementary and not competitive.
Yeah, I mean, you really want to think of a CDN as in the same way that you think of a media provider or a streaming provider. It's there to help your performance, to help your volume, make sure that that content of whatever form it's in is getting delivered in the best method possible.
Right. Okay, so we've got a couple of minutes. If there are any other last-minute questions on Twitter, just feel free to tweet that out using the EktronOH hashtag. Kenny, any ideas, any thoughts around digital asset management?
Sure.
You've kind of had that.
Now, what about audit trail capability? Is that going to be some feature that's going to bump you up to a DAM? I know with the out-of-the-box DMS features of Ektron, we didn't really have the audit trail features that we needed. Who downloaded what version of the file? When did they have it? Especially something that we're constantly updating the PDF in the system. And so we had Ektron's professional services department kind of put together a audit trail for us. Now, is that something that you're going to find in these DAM systems?
You're going to find it at different levels. Some certainly have more audit trail capabilities than others, although really all the systems I've looked at are customizable enough that just like what you did with Ektron, you can get in there pretty easily and provide yourself with a transactional record. So I guess the answer is it depends.
Okay, so we've got another comment from Jim on Twitter. Aloha plugin is a good idea, and feels like DAM and CDN are pretty synonymous for some platforms, and he cites as an example Adobe Scene 7. I think that most likely the case of what you're seeing there with Scene 7, Jim, is that it's really two products that are being put together in a more seamless way, but it's two distinct sets of functionality, similar to the way Ektron's, the way you manage HTML content and the DMS content. It's really behind the scenes. They're quite different, even though if you can get a lot of functionality, similar functionality out of it, it's not really the same functionality, just two distinct sets of functionality rolled into a single product. So I don't have any experience with Scene 7, but that's what it sounds like you're probably seeing, is that they're providing the DAM functionality and it's just tightly integrated with their own CDN to the point where it looks like a single product. And Ken mentions, I think of CDN as more a blob for storage, and DAM a CMS specific to assets whose contents can be stored in CDN. I would agree with that. All right, so we are at the end of the half hour. Thank you guys for joining, Brad and Kenny, and look forward to having you on. And I will say, Kenny, this is your first time on Office Hours, which I didn't realize. So thanks for coming on. As I said before we got on air, I am glad we were able to correct that mistake, and hope to see you on again soon.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for joining. Both you guys, thank you for the folks who were commenting on Twitter, Jim and Ken and Scott. And we'll see you next time. The next Office Hours, by the way, will be at least 2 or 3 weeks out due to vacations and travel schedules and things like that. So we plan to resume probably the second full week of January, which will be the week of the 12th. Possibly before then, but most likely the week of the 12th. And we'll see you then.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks.